The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Early Learning Division Oregon Head Start Pre-Kindergarten Directors Monthly Webinar. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Connor. I work with the Early Learning Division supporting our public pre-K programs. And on the line, we also have Lindsay and Donna's here. Lindsay, would you like to introduce yourself? She's still working on her sound, I think, which is great. Now I hear some sounds.
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yep, we sure can.
Yes.
All right. Figuring it out.
You want to introduce yourself, Lindsay?
Hi, Donna. I'm Lindsay. Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay Pearson. I'm the preschool specialist, the newest preschool specialist for the Early Learning Division.
Glad you're here. And
thanks for having me.
And then Donna's here too. That's great. And so let me get started with our agenda as soon as I can share my screen. Coming up. Can you see my screen?
I can.
Audience view. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so well, that's not what I want to see though. Great. So let me just greetings from Chicago. That's where I am today. Very exciting. And yeah. So our agenda today, we're going to hear a check-in with Donna. She's going to talk a little bit about the governor's budget and all the good stuff there. We were scheduled to have Shauna, but Shauna is out sick today, so I'm going to try to address what she wanted to raise. Analyst Teresa, normally here, is out today, and so Lindsay's going to step in for her. And then I've got an update. Reminder, our next webinar is Wednesday the 2nd. That's one of the months where we don't have an OHSA meeting the first week, so we're having another meeting on the 2nd. And we'll end with an OPK huddle because we've got some debrief about the email that went out yesterday from Lindsay about monitoring. Okay, so let's get started. Donna, do you want to take it away?
Sure. So this year we had, or last week on Wednesday, the governor released her budget. We've been waiting on pins and needles to find out what was going to be contained in the budget. And it wasn't what we wanted, sort of. So I need to explain that. There is a $625 million budget shortfall. And this is down from the $800 million budget shortfall that was reported earlier. And they have to have a balanced budget. One of the good things that happened is early learning was held harmless from cuts. So we received no cuts in the budget. We're flat funded, which is not good news. But as an add-on to the budget, the governor released a $2 billion investment package that that contains the ask that we have for Head Start. So the ask for Head Start in that $2 billion investment package is $101 million, which increases our cost per child up to and actually exceeds the preschool promise cost per child. So we are hopeful of getting it. What the governor wants is for all of us to push any tax packages that come forward. We don't know what they are now or what they're going to be. There's also another option, which is for taxes, is to tax businesses. And when Miriam and I were meeting with Justin the other day, one of the things he mentioned is that business may or may not be in favor of the tax because they seem to be the go-to for all tax increases. So but they may be inclined to agree with this one if it goes to education, because they got tax break from President Trump, and the tax increase would not rise to the level of the tax break, so they might be inclined to agree to the tax increase. It's all up in the air. There's no bill yet to talk about tax increases, so we don't know what that's going to look like. The good thing is we are still supported by the governor. She just couldn't put us with the expansion in the budget. We will be pushing for that investment package. I'll be getting in touch with you to let you know how we're going to do it. Justin is creating talking points as we speak, and we are consistently meeting with Miriam Calderon to make sure that we are all heading down the road the same. And we want to support the division in their ask and in their work. So that will be forefront in what we do. And we want to make sure that at the end of the session, we have $101 million increase that allows us to increase salaries, look at our transportation to see if that's something that we need to do, renovate facilities, and do the things that we need to do to stay viable and to compete against Preschool Promise. So the other thing is facilities, and Justin has done a little bit of research, and there's a couple of options on the table, and the governor did mention this in her budget proposal, and I know that school districts are mentioning it too, as the fact that we all need facilities, so there could be a potential of a new opportunity for all of us to get the facilities that we need funded. So that will be something that we will be talking about ongoing. But that's where we stand today.
Great. I see a question here or a comment. See if I'm smart enough to read this. Michelle from our down south asks, is the Preschool Promise expansion in the governor's budget and not in the investment package?
No, the Preschool Promise is also held at the current level of funding. There is a 6,600 student expansion for Preschool Promise in the investment package. So that will put them at the same level of students. Actually, it might move them a little bit above the level of students that we have funded by OPK, or no, it should be just level, because we have 12,000 kids funded by OPK, 6,000 are funded by Head Start, 6,000 of those are funded by OPK, a little bit more than 6,000. Also in there, in her investment package, is a 960 slot expansion for early Head Start. So that is good news too. That's something for us to really think about and start planning for. I know that early Head Start is one of the major things that Miriam wants to put forward, because our infant toddler care in our state is at a crisis level. So anything that we can do to get early Head Start out there, she wants to push, and she believes that early Head Start is the quality program that we need to push forward.
What do you mean muted? How did I mute it? Wait.
Annie, did you have a question?
No, it went mute, and I was just trying to find the way back to volume. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Annie. I just saw you raised your hand. So you're okay?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I must have been waving hello. God only knows what I was doing.
Okay, that's cool.
Sorry.
Okay, glad you're here. I'm gonna.
You can see me?
No, can't see you. Just know that you're here.
Oh,
That's enough.
thank you. Because I can't. That would be weird.
Okay, so wonderful. Couple things I'll point out. By policy, I support the governor's budget like a robot, but as a professional, I would say, if the investment fund goes through, we are talking about a historic improvement in our system. I think that's fair to say, especially around parity of wages with Preschool Promise. We're talking about making Head Start teaching back to being what it was when I started, which was kind of the premier job in early ed. Um, we're talking about situations where teachers can have a living wage, can take their kids on vacation, can dump that second silly job that they're doing to make ends meet, and really have this be a career that they can retire in. So, for me, as somebody who has been working on wages and working conditions since 1990, it's a really potentially game changing improvement to our system, and I just want to throw that out there. That the cost per child is radical and includes transportation explicitly, and things that we've been hoping and dreaming for a while. So, just throwing that out there. Anything else? Go ahead, Donna.
I think that it's historic too, and I know that always before, well, we've had really good leadership at the Early Learning Division, but no one's been as aggressive as Miriam, just pushing it out there saying we need to fund early learning. It's the place where we start. And she's bold in her ask and with no apologies. And she continues to encourage me that Head Start is a program that she really loves. Also, the division will be experiencing some expansion too, which is totally necessary in order for you to manage all of these new slots that we're going to be having. You need people to do that, and that's built into the ask also, so that you won't be just the two of you at the division managing OPK. There will be additional people to help you.
Yeah, and to some of the numbers, I think they've backed off a little bit on the dream of 10,000 preschool promise slots, and then by name, I think they're landing more like 6,000, which is a lot. But also it involves converting about a third of our slots to extended duration, depending on what you all know about your community and what parents need. So that's another, this we've been saying for a while that we're doing this extended duration pilot for a reason, which is to help us figure out how to do it. And in this proposal, a third of our slots would be converted, depending on what you all request. So there's some super good stuff there.
I just have one other thing. When we meet in January, I will need from the directors the number of children that are income eligible that are on their wait list, because and if they're going to convert, how many would they convert, which would leave fewer slots in their program if that is what they will do. So we need to know that, so that the plan is, for whatever we lose, we want to regain, so we're not running behind. We want to continue to move forward. And Justin needs to know that number so he knows how many to plan for in expansion, because we will ask for expansion. It doesn't ever hurt. The worst they can say is no.
Great. I'm gonna move off of Donna's report, but Donna, feel free to chime in whenever you want. And
I'm done.
Okay, great. Thank you. So again, Shauna had to call in sick today, so I'm just gonna try to do justice to her slides and share a little bit about what I know. The ELC did approve the strategic plan. Donna could be put on the spot to talk more about that, but there was a previous strategic plan, and I think there was a sense that it needed updating. And the three big, overarching goals around kiddos ready to learn and families stable and intact, and having a coordinated, aligned, family-friendly system. That's the guidance. So, no, nothing particularly earth-shaking there in my assessment. But I don't but it's really a plan that takes into account the idea that we want to grow our system. So there is a quarterly call coming up with Region 10. I'm not sure on the dates of that, but just you should have that in your calendars. And then there's a Region 10 TNTA meeting that she's going to be attending with the TNTA staff coming up in January up in Seattle. There is a learning collab with the hubs. I believe that's going to be in Salem, or maybe it's in Portland. I don't know. Sorry. Just look for invitations and participation for that. She wanted to call out apparently the Don't Call a Baby Promise, the infant toddler pilot. I believe the application got released last night, and the pilot model says that CCR&Rs would apply for this pilot to do more, to do infant toddler mixed delivery slots comparable to Preschool Promise for families that are up to 185% of the poverty level. The reason it's 185, I understand, is that the funding source, I think it's, I don't want to say, I think it's Child Development Block Grant, but I don't know. So don't quote me on that. Anyway, if you are a CCR&R or you have friends who are, they can start looking at the pilot. There's a few, it's not that many slots, but the idea is that this is where we're headed, is having a coordinated aligned system where there's more early Head Start for low-income families challenged by poverty. There's infant toddler promise slots for folks who are above the poverty line, but still, as we all know, need lots of support and so forth. I hope Sean is not watching the recording of this, because that's not a great report, but not terrible. And then, right, so there's going to be some follow-up around the Early Childhood Summit, which where we had Dr. Gilliam come, and lots of really good conversations about really being responsive and inclusive of all of our kiddos, and how do we address the challenges that so many of our teachers are working with in terms of behaviors and just the extra special needs that so many of our kids have. So look for that coming out from Shauna. And then, phew, Shauna, I did my best. Here are some updates from Teresa, but guest starring Lindsay.
Hello, everybody. I too hope that maybe Teresa is not going to watch this, because I'm not sure she has a lot more information than I do, especially when it comes to data. So the update is reopening data on 2017-2018 data collection. So programs that are missing the ODE data on models and students in the fall will be working with Teresa to recover that by December 31st. Directors and listed data staff were notified that you guys were noting. So if you guys didn't get any information, then you are all good. So don't worry if you haven't heard from Teresa, then you're set. And monthly report. So with the TS Gold reliability question, since we are past the first checkpoint date, most, if not all, of your teachers should be reliable in TS Gold. So make sure that you answer that question. The EGIMS timeline. So she's also, because there's some restructuring happening, wanting to make sure that you guys know that there might be some delays on EGIMS. That she is working really hard on making sure that she's on top of it, but there's some stuff stuff moving around at the ELD. So she'll make every effort to get the claims turned around as quickly as possible, and we just have a lot of bureaucracy and signatures and things that might kind of mess with that. And then the last but not least, I believe, on the ELD portal, there is a bunch of information kind of right on that front page, and it's new information, and I'm not going to go through each of it because you guys can go there and read it, but she wants you guys to make sure that you check on those updates, and I'm pretty sure that's all. Does anybody have any questions? If you do have really good questions that I can't answer, you can email Teresa.
Right.
She'd be happy to answer them.
We appreciate questions you know the answer to. Thank you.
Mhm.
I'm going to keep going then. And well, Lindsay, did you have your own updates, or are you just channeling Teresa today?
I don't really have any of my own updates, but I am doing, so right now, one of the things that I am personally looking at and looking into is your equity work plans. And so I'll be looking forward to receiving those by the 31st, and then just kind of getting in contact. I might have some questions and stuff, so please be patient with me.
Right, and that's one of the places, for example, I've sort of joked around the office, but since Dawn Barberis left end of March, and before that she was really working on some non-OPK stuff. So it's actually been a while since we had more than one person supporting our Oregon Head Start pre-kindergarten programs, as you know, because you're probably sick of me. So now it's like we actually team up, and Lindsay is like looking at your previous equity work plans as we get ready to receive the new ones, so that we can have some context for, as you talk about them, what challenges you're taking on and what strategies you've tried. And it's just one of those things that we were able to check them in and skim them, but not really dig into them with you. So and there's no stakes associated with that. It's just we want to know what's going on with you and learn from each other and see if there are things we can do to support you better. So.
And so one of the things, or one of my visions in that respect, is trying to make sure that I can support you guys in finding trainings and trainers and professional development that's really going to meet your needs. And so that's how that's going to help me in looking at those.
Beautiful. Okay, so a few items from me. Just a little bit about TS Gold. Just a reminder that because the options, we made those 19 items optional. The guidance that we shared with you earlier that's available on the portal, two things to point out. One is you want to make sure that your teachers are choosing not yet or not observed. There's different advantages or different disadvantages to those. Not yet means that sort of everybody's getting a 0 on that. And that's fine. The advantage to that is that you can do that by class. So the teacher can pull up the whole class, and for each of those items, just check the whole class as not yet. For not observed, it basically says we're not counting that, but the teacher has to do those for each child individually. However you do that, when you do your checkpoints by dimension, you want to make sure to exclude those items from your reporting. As you create a snapshot by dimension, you want to exclude those items. Otherwise, your data is going to look really funky in terms of whether kids are meeting expectations or not yet meeting or exceeding. So we explained that in the guidance, but I just want to remind you, because we had many questions about that. Hey, my data looks really weird. It shows my kids are not meeting their mathematics expectations nearly as well as they did last year, and that's because you were including those items in your reporting. And if you're saying that all the kids are getting a 0, I mean that in the most loving way, then that's going to mess up the data. I did want to point out that the long promised effort by the ELD to push out the door some one-time funds is going to be happening this winter, hopefully early winter, so January, February, and we'll have a lot of guidance and a way and a clear way for you to apply for that. So some of you have sent in some questions about that, so just stay tuned a little bit longer. But that's going to be for typically what we've done with that is made it available for facilities improvements, not purchases, for training and technical assistance, for large purchases that are hard to carve out of the budget another way, some of that stuff. So we'll have guidance about that, but just as you're thinking about a wish list, that'll be proportionate to the size of your grant, basically, and be ready for that come January. Hopefully some good news that we have some little bit of extra money for you to take care of some of those needs that you have. I'll skip the ambitious instruction because I have some slides on that. But I will say a little bit about the ELD reorganization and capacity. Happy to report that we have a new preschool promise coordinator, Dana Young, who's coming from the hub in Salem-Keizer area. She's a fantastic resource to our program. We have to send cookies and milk to the hub because we're stealing a wonderful employee of theirs, but super excited. And you might be saying, well, what's Gwen doing? Because Gwen has been the preschool promise coordinator from day one. Gwen has accepted a position as, I don't know the exact title, but it's basically the new preschool programs manager. So she's taking Nikisha's role in some ways. Nikisha's moving over to another part of the world that involves the reorganization of the ELD. So Gwen is our new supervisor and the coordinator for all of the ELD early learning programs, with the exception of Healthy Families. So you'll be, if you're a preschool promise provider, you'll be interacting with Dana more. And then those times that you interacted with Nikisha, Gwen will be that person. So terrific to have somebody who's in the position of coordinating and leadership, where they really understand Head Start, they really understand preschool promise. So there's that. So a little bit about ambitious instruction. As you know, we have the reason I'm in Chicago right now is we have this multi-year project, the Partnership for Pre-K Improvement. And we also have a strategic plan around some kind of key areas. And there they are. They're the essentials that we have been talking about for a while. And that second one, ambitious instruction, is the work group that I head up. And just a little bit about that. And there's a poll for this, so be ready get your poll finger ready. I know Annie's always asking for more polls in the webinar. So as we said many times before, a big surprise for programs to improve child outcomes, one of the crucial things that needs to happen is teachers need to be doing great stuff. So we've had this work group to tackle that and think about, well, how do we improve and encourage great teaching in our public pre-K? So the first thing we worked on for about a year was conceptually, what do we mean by great teaching in early childhood? It turns out that's a complicated question, and people kind of weigh in according to their curriculum, according to their perspective, according to their approach, according to their funding stream, and so forth. So we were interested in creating conceptually kind of a way to think about great teaching that cuts across some of that, whether you're a high quality in-home provider, or you're a Reggio-inspired Head Start teacher, or a Tools of the Mind practitioner, you can agree that, well, this is one way to think about what great teaching is. And the map of that concept map, we were able to do a number of focus groups where we got feedback from some teachers, but also a lot of instructional leaders, so education coordinators and coaches. And the main thing we wanted to know was, what does this look like in practice when you see a teacher being inclusive of child and family culture? What have you seen? What are the stories that you have? What are the examples? What are the illustrations? And we collected dozens of very long surveys from instructional leaders, mostly in our system, in our public pre-K system. And we are fortunate to have some graduate student and post-grad researchers who are digging into those surveys to find out sort of common themes and great stories and good examples and so forth. But then also to help us think about, as we try to explain better what this concept is, what do we need to improve in terms of how we're describing what we're looking for and so forth. So that survey report is coming out middle of next month. And that leads me to talking about the next steps. The survey results from the focus group are coming out next month, and we're likely to put together a webinar to share the results from that. So what do people think about this model is kind of focus of that webinar. And that's why I have this handy dandy feedback icon there of the disembodied heads with different colors and shapes of thoughts coming and talk out of their heads. That's the feedback icon. So look for that, and think about people in your organization that might be interested in hearing about the survey results and giving us some feedback. The other cool part about this is that those of you who are participating in Lead, Learn, Excel already know this, but our colleagues at the University of Washington have put together a Coaching Companion version that's just for us. Coaching Companion is an online coaching tool, video feedback, and professional learning community tool that Head Start has had for a while. Well, the folks at University of Washington have created one just for us. And one of the super neat things about that is it has with it a massive video library of exemplary practice that's organized by keywords and topics. So our folks at the Coaching Companion are going to make sure that there are videos that correspond to our conceptual model. So if you're a coach or a teacher and you're looking for examples of teachers giving, being responsive to toxic stress, or connecting what's happening in the classroom to what families know about in their home life, we want to have good examples of that to help illustrate these ideas. And the Coaching Companion video library will be mapped back to this model. So the survey results and the Coaching Companion video library will then be used as resources for the writing of a white paper where we really flesh out what do we mean by this concept of great teaching, of ambitious instruction. And when we draft that white paper, that's happening this winter, we are going to be looking for a place to check in with folks who want to give us advice about the white paper, about this project. So there'll be another touch point there in late winter, so probably like March 1st or something, saying here's our thinking, here's how our thinking is developed, and here's our planning. So we'll be looking for folks who want to give us advice, give us some feedback. The white paper and the video library that will then be resources for the development of a professional development opportunity to happen at Summer Institute. So our assumption is that great teaching happens in our system, but that for a teacher to go from sort of the solid place that many of our teachers are to becoming outstanding, we don't have a great system for doing that, right? It's fairly random. You happen to get paired with a wonderful mentor, or you happen to share a classroom with somebody who's just amazing and you learn so much from them, right? Well, that's a start, but that's not a deliberate, intentional way to move people from good to great, as the expression goes. So we are thinking about, well, what kind of intensive experience could people have that would then lead to a professional learning community that's online that would persist. So that's our model, is that we're going to have a course that happens at Summer Institute, 4 days, so a really intense experience. And then the folks who participate in that pilot intense experience would also be in a facilitated online professional learning community for the following program year. So that would be 1920, with the intention of boosting their teaching practices according to this model. And our plan is to get mostly Preschool Promise and Head Start teachers that would apply with support from their organization to participate, and we would have some funds to support them at the Summer Institute in terms of a stipend and travel and lodging and so forth, and then also a stipend for participating in an online peer learning community for the year, because they're helping us learn how do we help teachers move from good to great. And after we do this Summer Institute experience, we'll have another chance to opportunity request that we get some feedback on sort of the way that we set up the classes and the way that they went. So those are those 3 touch points that we have there for the Ambitious Instruction Project. So I'll pause right there, and you might be thinking we should take a poll on this, and you're right. we should take a poll on this, and the poll is in the website here, and I'm gonna launch it if I can select it. How come I can't select it? There is a poll. I know there is. Wait a second here. Wait a second. There is a poll. Yeah, okay. So it's, I don't know, Lindsay, why is it not happening? It should be happening.
I wish I could help you.
It says select the poll. I see it. Oh, there we go. Okay. And I'm launching it. There it is. Poll open. Okay, so I'm distributing the poll. I'm going to give you, nobody's voted yet, but now's your chance to vote. We're asking, what's your take? Are we on the right track? Are we off? You can select more than one item. So we got 30% voting. So this is like a non-mail-in ballot state. Oh, now we're up to 40. Now we're 57%. Now we're like a mail-in ballot state. 71%. Oh, this is going great. Just another few seconds here. And I'm going to close the poll. So, and there's the results. And so that's good to hear. I don't hear anybody saying stop, which is great to hear. And I appreciate the encouragement. You know, our assessment is we've thought a lot about how to help a novice teacher become a solid teacher, you know, and that's not an easy thing. You think about the NCQTL house framework, right? You think about the class where we want teachers to have a warm, welcoming environment and have a classroom that's organized and busy. We're pretty good at that. How to help teachers really take that next level and to become amazing. We're not sure exactly how to do that yet, but we're interested and we'd like to develop our system so that we're better at doing that. So I appreciate that. If you check the last item, I'll be sending out an invitation to the first webinar in January to discuss the survey. Just keep that person in mind that maybe it's you or maybe it's your ed coordinator or something like that. And if you would help me to spread the word about that, that would be great. And then also start thinking, or tell your colleagues to start thinking about teachers who would be good to participate in the Summer Institute course. We're looking for solid teachers who are already doing many good things, and how do we help them go from good to great? So great. So I'm going to hide the poll now, but thank you for your attention on that. Really appreciate it. And let's keep going to talking about the specialist calendar coming up in the next couple of months. So Lead, Learn, Excel is our effort to think about instructional leadership in our programs. We've got cohort 2 meeting this week coming up in Eugene. We have participation from Preschool Promise sites and 4 Oregon Pre-K sites, Oregon Pre-K Head Start sites. And we've made some improvements. We think it's even better than the first cohort, so that's happening. There is a winter director meeting happening. Donna mentioned that. It's in Wilsonville. It's at the end of January. Looking forward to that. And accompanying that meeting is the extended duration pilot meeting that happens in the morning before the main conference starts. So if you're one of the 7 programs participating in the extended duration pilot, looking forward to meeting with you there. Our colleagues from Western Oregon University, I'm happy to say, are going to be facilitating that meeting and giving some overview on sort of the first quarter of our project. So really looking forward to that. The winter conference happening in Salem in early February, and that's a meeting that takes place early in the month. So we will not be having a webinar in February. We'll just be having a check-in at the conference. Last thing I'll say, and we'll talk more about this in the OPK huddle, but We did get approval for our monitoring protocol, which is based on the Focus Area 2 monitoring protocol that the feds put out. And we're contacting right now state-only funded programs to arrange we're having 2-day visits, doing as much of the Focus Area 2 monitoring protocol as we can with each of our state-funded programs. Some resources for you I'd like to share. And I shared this last time, but we had the sound issue. So if you haven't had a chance for your ed folks, or if you wear more than one hat, for you to check out the effective practice guides, they really are quite wonderful. They have a standard kind of format of learn about it and talk about it and practice it, and they're really effective, and they're organized around what kids need to be doing. So kids need to be learning. So they're organized around domains of learning for kids, and they're really quite wonderful. There is a new resource out from NOAC around helping African American boys and their math experiences, their applied curiosity, as we like to say, and that resource is super cool, and I encourage people to share the love on that. I did want to highlight these Bank Street videos. Again, we shared them in the last webinar, but there was no sound. The really neat thing about these is that they do a couple of interesting things. They'll show a video clip, and then they break away from the video clip, and they have a panel, and the panel is a professor, Nancy Nager, I think is how you say her name. She's an instructor, and she interviews 3 doctoral students who are studying at Bank Street about their perspective on what's happening in the video. So not only are you getting kind of a rich discussion about what's happening in the video, but you're actually then getting a model for how do you look together at what's happening in a classroom, and understanding what the kiddo's doing and what the children are doing together, and how the teacher's interacting with the kids, and so forth. So it's a really rich resource that each one comes with a little video, a PDF that goes with it. But I really encourage you to share that. And what I've done in teaching is to show the video and then pause it and invite teachers and folks to respond, and then play the dialogue with the professor and the grad students, so you get their take on things. And then do a little debrief about how did we respond compared to, that you can see how that sets itself up for a really rich conversation, and people practicing how do you think critically and collectively about classroom experiences where it's not your classroom, so it's less stressful. But anyway, really encourage you all to check that out. I sent out a save the date flyer, but here it is again. The Summer Institute, we're really thinking carefully about how the Summer Institute can help build our system. And in particular, our contribution to the Summer Institute is to include courses that are targeted to participation in Head Start and Preschool Promise, because that's the system that we really want to improve, right? So the Save the Date flyer is there. As we mentioned, the modules for great teaching are going to be there. And there's going to be a class observation training that's going to happen there, and other stuff. So think about that. This is a really interesting resource where the folks from Illinois State have put together videos that are coded by a category. So the category would be, like welcoming environments or something like that, right? The neat thing is that they're interested in P3 alignment. So within the category of welcoming environment, there are videos that show Head Start or pre-K teachers doing this thing, kindergarten teachers doing this thing, first grade, second grade, third grade. So you can, and they're building on this library, but you can, especially if you're doing P3 alignment work, if you're trying to connect with your school district and so forth, you can help each other to think about, well, what does this mean across different age groups, so that the kindergarten experience doesn't have to be such a total break with the early education experience. So offering that resource for you and your teams. There is a webinar coming up that I wanted to highlight around shared decision making and collaborative discussions. There's a link in the slides to this webinar. It looks pretty interesting. And with that, we conclude the group, the whole group portion of our ELD OHS Pre-K Directors Monthly Webinar. We're going to pause now
Hey,
for,
Michael.
yes, please. Oh, Tristan.
Hi, it's Tristan. Can
Tristan,
I give my update?
so glad you spoke up because my Chicago brain forgot to introduce you and pause for your updates and contributions. So Tristan from the association, take it away.
Great. So a couple of quick things. A lot's been covered already. Just an update. The charitable checkoff grants are out to the scoring committee. We had more money available than was requested, so chances are good that you'll get the funding that you asked for. The board will be meeting next week to decide on those and award funding. As was already mentioned, the winter director meeting is coming up January 23rd through 25th. Registration's open. If you haven't seen the email, get a hold of me and I'll make sure you get it. The winter conference will be opening soon. I ran into some technical difficulties. I was on the phone with tech support for almost 2 hours yesterday trying to fix them. Their system has an error and I'm going to have to recreate the whole thing. So there's going to be a delay, but I'm hoping by next week to have it open for registration. And then registration will be open for the specialist conference on January 2nd. The track coordinators are making their final decisions right now on what to include, and we've had some really great submissions come in for that. In case you didn't see, Children's Institute has a grant opportunity out right now with school districts. They're having a webinar on it coming up. I know it goes through the school districts. Otherwise, you'd really have to read the information, don't know much about it. And then a final thing from NHSA, the Family First Prevention Services Act came out with their list of programs, and EHS is missing from that initial list. We are working on getting it included, and we'll have more information come January on that. So that's my quick updates.
Thank you, Tristan, and my humble apologies. Tristan was kind enough to accept our invitation to have a regular portion in the webinar here so we can be on the same page, and I just didn't get to that, and I'm really sorry, Tristan, but thank you so much for your contributions, and we'll do better, even better next time. So thank you. I do want to pause then, and unless there's any questions or comments, I'll invite the state-funded programs to stay here. If you're not a state-funded program and you've got other stuff to do, you are welcome to end your participation in the webinar. You're always welcome to hang out with us. No problem with that. But just I'll give another little pause here for people to drop off if you need to. Thank you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is call up the monitoring plan so you can see a little bit about our plans, if I can get it to happen. It's not being very friendly with me right now. Here we go. One moment, please. Okay, here we go. Okay. So the calendar that we have here, as we mentioned, let's see who's here. I didn't even stop and look. Teresa's here, wonderful. Kathleen's here, great. Very cool. Okay. So so just to briefly talk about it. So we've got a before, during, and after. Imagine that. Before, we'll be looking at your regular documents that you've submitted. We'll be working with you, Lindsay and I, on a calendar that works for you. We're trying to have at least 30 days notice so you can prepare um, and like that. There are, with the protocol that we're using, as you can see, there are a number of interviews that we'll be doing with both management leadership, with parent leadership, board leadership. We'll be talking with teachers and staff. So there's a lot to get done in just a couple of days. If you look at the and then we'll have a remote pre-meeting where we talk with you and your leadership team about sort of what we gather from the documents that we'll be reviewing. And when we talk about the documents we're reviewing, we're talking about the ones I'm highlighting right here: monthly reports, self-assessment, equity work plan, and so forth. So that's what we'll be reviewing in advance, and then we'll talk with you about questions you have, or check in with you about your self-assessment and quality improvement plan, like that. So then I'll just briefly kind of go through the day there. We'd start with a meeting in the morning. They refer to what they call as data tours. So that's where you present information in different components. And we try to understand together what's happening in your program, and we explore each of the service areas. And Teresa, either on-site or remotely, will be meeting to talk about to look at ERC child file reviews. So you select a number of child files and look at them together, and looking at your budget and finances and so forth. At lunchtime, we intend to have some connecting with your community partners. So we'll either a lunch with the hub, or if you are in or with your dual funded partner in the community, and so forth. In the afternoon, we've got these interviews scheduled. As I mentioned before, director, managers, governing body, and policy council. Those are all spelled out in the federal monitoring protocol, so we're just adopting those just straight up. And then we'd have a debrief our team internally to talk a little bit about what we know and so forth. On the morning of the second day, Lindsay and Michael will be doing classroom explorations. We'll use a kind of a truncated class observation, probably just like 2 10-minute sessions like that, just to give us kind of a focus way to look at classroom interaction, and then talking with families and educators. And then on the afternoon of the second day, we'll have an exit meeting with you and your leadership team to talk about the school readiness data, share our findings initially, and develop any plan for TNTA or other ways that we can support you. I have a question in the question box. That's so exciting. Leslie, thanks for your question. She asked, will you send this format? We will definitely be sending out a version of this. This is the document that we prepared internally that we just got approval on Friday, but absolutely we'll be sending out a calendar and sort of what you're going to do and what we're going to do, like that. Thank you for that. And then after the site visit, we'll create a report. We'll decide if there's any areas of non-compliance. Gwen is the final approver of the reports, and when we get her approval, then we'll send the report out to you. So that's what we're looking at for monitoring January to April. The other thing I'll share is we have to think about a priority for visits. And so the priority that we landed on goes like this. The reason we have a prioritized visit list is that we do not likely have the time budget or the budget to visit everyone. So we thought, who are we going to visit first? So we've got 3 folks that have been working on corrective action plans, so that seems to be the most likely place to go first. And then we've got 3 grantees that we've not visited since at least 2016. So that's these folks here, our OCDC friends in Multnomah, Marion, and Jackson. The last person to visit with them was Don Barberis before 2016. So that was the first thing we thought there. The next kind of tier of folks to visit are Children's Learning Center, Neighborhood House, and OCDC Klamath. We did visit them, but not last year. And then the last tier is Clackamas ESD and Salem Kaiser. So depending on budget, in terms of budget and time budget, that's the sequence that we'd probably likely try to address. But right now we're trying to schedule everybody and then just see where we'll land. Okay. So and thanks for your patience on that. We'll just get to that when we get to that. Any other questions about this general plan? It's a little bit more robust than we were able to do the first or second year. We're hoping that we can have some really good conversations and learn a lot about the great work that you're doing. Questions, comments?
I just wanted to add that we will not be surprising you guys. So please take a deep breath. We're not going to surprise you with things that we're going to look at or when we're going to show up or anything like that. So you should be well prepared for what's coming.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, as you know, the focus has moved away from compliance to quality improvement, and that is certainly our intention. The Focus Area 2 monitoring protocol is a great resource to start thinking about how you're going to prepare for this. Really, it's a chance for you to show off the great stuff that your program does, and that's what we're really interested in finding out about. Other questions or comments? Okay. Well, with that, then we should declare victory here. This is Michael Connor signing off from Chicago, where it's 26 degrees and snowing. So,
oh my gosh.
Yep, that's the way we do it here.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing you all in a month. Best of luck to you as you say goodbye to your families for the holidays, and be in touch. We always like to hear from you. Take care. Thank you for your time and attention. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having me.